May 29th, 1453. For nearly 1,000 years, Constantinople stood as the greatest city in the Christian world. It survived barbarian invasions, earthquakes, civil wars, and plagues. Its massive walls had earned a legendary reputation. Many believed the city could never fall. Yet, on that spring morning, history changed forever. The Ottoman armies of Sultan Mehmed II breached the ancient defenses. By sunset, the Byzantine Empire had come to an end. Constantinople became Istanbul. The balance of power shifted. Trade routes changed. Europe entered a new age. The Ottoman Empire became one of the most powerful states in history. That is the history we know. But history is often decided by moments measured in minutes. A single gate left open, a commander arriving too late, a cannon firing one last time. What if one of those moments had unfolded differently? What if the walls had held? What if Constantinople survived the siege? What if the Byzantine Empire refused to disappear? Tonight, we open another hidden archive. This is a timeline where the greatest city of the Middle Ages never fell. This episode is a work of speculative historical fiction inspired by real historical events. The alternate timeline that follows is entirely fictional and created for entertainment and discussion. The people are real. The history is real. The choices that follow are not. Welcome to the empire that history almost forgot. What if the Romans held the line? May 29th, 1453. Just before dawn, a freezing wind swept across the stone walls of Constantinople. For 53 days, the city had endured absolute hell. Relentless bombardment, night assaults, starvation, extreme exhaustion. Yet the ancient walls still stood, scarred, broken in places, but standing. Inside, every citizen had become a soldier. Merchants stood beside professional guards. Monks carried heavy stones to the ramparts. Blacksmiths repaired armor by candlelight. Women brought water to the gasping defenders. The entire city fought as one single body. At the center stood Emperor Constantine XI. He had refused every offer to escape. If Constantinople was going to fall, its emperor would fall with it. Before sunrise, he gathered his commanders inside a damaged tower. Maps lay across a rough wooden table. Candles flickered in the draft. The emperor spoke quietly. "Today decides more than our empire," he said. "It decides if this city remains the bridge between East and West." No one answered. They already knew the stakes. Beyond the walls waited 80,000 Ottoman soldiers. Inside, fewer than 8,000 defenders remained. The odds were 10-1, yet no one suggested surrender. Outside, Sultan Mehmed II prepared for the final blow. His commanders stood before him. "The walls cannot survive another assault," they told him. "Our men are ready." Mehmed looked toward the city. For weeks, Constantinople had defied every expectation. He admired their courage. But admiration would not stop his army. He raised his hand. Signal flags climbed into the morning sky. The final attack began. Ottoman artillery opened fire. The ground shook. Massive stone cannonballs crashed against the ancient walls. Dust filled the air. Church bells rang across the city. Archers climbed the battlements. Crossbows were loaded. Greek fire was prepared. Wave after wave of infantry advanced through the smoke. The defenders answered with arrows, rocks, and burning oil. The first attack broke, then the second, Then the third. Every assault pushed the defenders closer to their breaking point. Near the St. Romanus Gate, a massive breach finally opened. Ottoman soldiers surged forward. Byzantine troops rushed to block them. Steel clashed against steel. The fighting became desperate. Emperor Constantine himself entered the fray. His armor was covered in dust and blood, yet he refused to retreat. Every defender who saw him fight found renewed strength. For a brief moment, the line held. Then, disaster struck. A section of the inner barricade collapsed. Ottoman soldiers poured through the gap. Panic spread. Some defenders began falling back. Others believed the city was already lost. History books say this was the end. But this is where history changed. Far out in the harbor, the bells of the Byzantine fleet suddenly rang. From the morning mist, sails appeared. At first, no one could believe their eyes. More ships, dozens of them, flying the banners of Venice, Genoa, and the Knights of Rhodes. For weeks, storms had delayed this relief fleet. Now, against all odds, it had arrived. The Ottoman navy turned to intercept, but they were too late. Fresh soldiers rushed ashore. Thousands of experienced crossbowmen and armored infantry ran toward the city gates. Inside the walls, a cry spread. Reinforcements have arrived. Exhausted soldiers found the second wind. The emperor raised his sword and yelled, "Forward!" The counterattack began. Fresh Venetian crossbowmen climbed the walls. Genoa's engineers immediately patched the breach. Greek fire erupted across the battlefield. Ottoman formations faltered. The narrow breach became a deadly trap. Hour after hour, the battle raged. By midday, the Ottoman advance had stopped. By afternoon, they were retreating. For the first time in 53 days, the impossible had happened. The attackers were falling back. From a distant hill, Sultan Mehmed watched in silence. He lowered his spyglass. His generals waited. Finally, he spoke. "The city will not fall today." No one answered. They knew what it meant. The greatest siege of the century had failed. The walls of Constantinople still stood. History had just taken a different path. As evening settled, church bells rang once more. Not in mourning, but in triumph. People embraced in the streets. Candles lit up every window. The city had survived. No one knew what tomorrow would bring, but everyone knew one thing. Constantinople had been given a second chance, and with it, maybe civilization itself. The morning after the failed assault, an uneasy silence settled over Constantinople. For 53 days, the city had echoed with constant cannon fire. Now, only the cries of gulls drifted across the water. Smoke still rose from shattered towers. Broken stone covered the streets. The walls had survived, but barely. Inside the city, no one celebrated for long. They understood the truth. The siege had ended, but the danger had not. Emperor Constantine XI rode slowly along the walls. Every few hundred steps, he stopped. He spoke with his soldiers. He thanked exhausted citizens. He helped move the wounded. He did not behave like a victorious emperor. He behaved like the guardian of a city that had been given one final chance. The defenders had won a battle. Now they had to save an empire. Beyond the walls, the Ottoman camp remained strangely quiet. Sultan Mehmed II stood inside his command tent, studying reports from his generals. The losses had been severe. Thousands of experienced soldiers had fallen. The arrival of the Venetian relief fleet had shattered months of careful planning. Food supplies were running low. Disease had begun spreading through sections of the camp. Every additional week outside Constantinople weakened his army. His commanders demanded another assault. Others argued for withdrawal. For hours, no decision was made. Finally, Mehmed rolled up the map. He looked toward the distant walls one last time. "The city won this battle," he said, "but history is not finished with us." The order was given. The Ottoman army would withdraw. Slowly, the largest siege of the 15th century came to an end. From the towers of Constantinople, watchmen could hardly believe what they were seeing. Rows of Ottoman tents disappeared one by one. Cannons were loaded onto wagons. Columns of soldiers began marching east. By sunset, the fields surrounding the city stood empty. Church bells rang across Constantinople. Not in triumph, but in relief. The city had survived. Messengers immediately departed in every direction, to Venice, to Rome, to Hungary, to Serbia, to the courts of Europe. The message was short. Constantinople still stands. Across Europe, the reaction was immediate. Many rulers had already accepted the city's fall as inevitable. Now, everything changed. The Byzantine Empire had become more than a kingdom. It had become a symbol, a reminder that impossible victories were sometimes real. Venice announced emergency financial aid. Genoa sent engineers and craftsmen. The papacy organized collections to rebuild the city's defenses. Even kingdoms that had long ignored Byzantium suddenly recognized its importance. If Constantinople survived, the gateway between Europe and Asia remained open. Trade could continue. Inside the imperial palace, Constantine summoned his advisors. The meeting lasted until sunrise. Maps covered the chamber. Reports arrived from every province, still loyal to the empire. The news was mixed. Some fortresses remained secure, but others were bankrupt. The treasury itself was almost empty. One minister spoke first. "We need more soldiers." Another disagreed. "We need more money." An elderly scholar quietly raised his hand. "We need something greater," he said. "The empire did not nearly die because we lacked courage. It nearly died because we stopped changing." The room fell silent. Constantine slowly nodded. He understood. Rebuilding broken walls would not save Byzantium. Rebuilding the empire would. Within weeks, the emperor announced reforms unlike anything seen in generations. Taxes were simplified. Corruption among provincial governors was investigated. Merchants received protection across imperial trade routes. Foreign craftsmen were invited to settle inside Constantinople. Shipbuilders received royal funding. Engineers were ordered to strengthen every major fortress using the newest artillery designs. The empire began modernizing faster than anyone expected. Most surprising of all, the emperor opened the imperial library to scholars from across Europe. Greek philosophers, Italian mathematicians, and Arab astronomers gathered. For the first time in centuries, Constantinople became a meeting place for civilizations once again. Knowledge flowed through its gates as freely as merchants. The city slowly transformed. Markets reopened. Shipyards echoed with the sound of hammers. New towers rose beside ancient churches. The scars of the siege remained visible, but so did hope. One evening, Constantine climbed the highest tower overlooking the Golden Horn. Beside him stood the commander who had defended the breach. The soldier looked across the city. "We survived," he said. The emperor smiled faintly. "No," he replied. "We were given another beginning." Constantinople still stood. The news hit Europe like a lightning bolt. Kings who had already written their condolences had to rewrite their letters. Western merchants canceled plans to abandon the East. Scholars in Paris and Bologna celebrated. The city that preserved ancient wisdom had survived. But inside the walls, Emperor Constantine XI knew survival was not a strategy. The Ottomans would return, maybe next year, maybe in 10. The empire had one shot. It had to get stronger than it had ever been. This was the start of the Great Restoration. The emperor stopped wasting trade taxes on useless court ceremonies. Instead, he poured every coin into shipyards, walls, schools, and roads. For the first time in 300 years, the empire invested in tomorrow. The Golden Horn became the busiest harbor in the Mediterranean. Venetian merchants unloaded Persian silk. Arab traders brought Indian spices. Ships from the Black Sea brought grain and iron. You could hear 6 languages in a single market stall: Greek, Italian, Arabic, Armenian, Hebrew, and Slavic. The city was no longer a dying museum. It was the meeting place of the world. Inside the Imperial Library, a massive shift was happening. Scholars who fled the siege returned. Greek philosophers debated Italian humanists. Arab astronomers shared math with Byzantine scientists. Jewish doctors translated ancient texts into Latin. One Florentine scholar wrote in his diary, "I came for books, but I found the future." Printing presses arrived just years later. Thousands of fragile manuscripts were saved forever. Plato, Aristotle, Euclid, and Archimedes were printed by the thousands. Ancient knowledge was no longer one fire away from disappearing. At the same time, the military changed. Cannons had almost destroyed the city. The next siege would be worse. Italian and Byzantine engineers worked together to redesign the ancient walls. They made them lower and thicker to absorb cannon fire. They built massive angled bastions. Byzantium quietly became a military powerhouse. The navy upgraded too. Shipyards built fast galleys with heavy cannons. Experienced sailors from Genoa and Venice trained Byzantine crews. The empire was ready to defend the sea itself. Meanwhile, Sultan Mehmed II watched from his palace. The failed siege was his biggest defeat. Spies sent him troubling reports. The city was not dying. It was growing. Every month made an invasion harder. Some of his generals wanted war immediately. Others warned that Europe would defend a rising Constantinople. Mehmed chose to wait. Both empires rebuilt. Both prepared. Both knew another war was coming. But back in the city, daily life was transforming. New schools opened. Children of blacksmiths and sailors studied math, engineering, and navigation. Education was no longer just for the rich. Trade boomed. Taxes actually went down as business went up. Prosperity replaced fear. The scars of the battle were still there, but flowers bloomed around the Hagia Sophia again. Musicians played in the streets. Hope was real. One evening, Constantine XI stood on the repaired walls. Next to him was the old scholar who once warned him that the empire died because it stopped changing. The emperor looked at the glowing city. "You were right," he said. The scholar smiled. No, Majesty. History was. A new age was starting. Not the Renaissance of Italy, but the Renaissance of Constantinople. A rebirth born from survival, and its power was about to reach the entire world. 20 years passed. The smoke of the Great Siege had long disappeared. Children born after the victory knew nothing of the terror their parents had endured. To them, Constantinople had always been strong. Its markets had always been full. Its walls had always seemed unbreakable. But beyond the city, the balance of power across Europe had quietly begun to change. The Byzantine Empire no longer stood alone. Trade agreements connected Constantinople with Venice, Genoa, Hungary, Poland, and kingdoms throughout the Mediterranean. The Bosporus became the busiest commercial gateway in the known world. Every ship sailing between Europe and Asia passed beneath the shadow of Byzantine towers. The empire grew wealthy once again, not through conquest, but through commerce. Every caravan that crossed Anatolia, every merchant ship entering the Black Sea, every spice, silk, manuscript, and precious metal added to the imperial treasury. For the first time in centuries, the Byzantine economy flourished. Emperor Constantine XI did not live to witness all of it. Years after saving his capital, he died peacefully inside the great palace, not on a battlefield, not defending broken walls, but watching the empire rise once again. The entire city mourned. Church bells rang for hours. Merchants closed their shops. Soldiers lowered their banners. Citizens lined the streets as the emperor's funeral procession passed beneath the great dome of Hagia Sophia. His successor inherited something few Byzantine rulers had possessed for generations: stability. The new emperor continued the reforms. Roads stretched deeper into the Balkans. Bridges linked isolated provinces. Imperial engineers improved harbors across the Aegean. Lighthouses guided merchant fleets through dangerous waters. Trade became faster, safer, more profitable. Meanwhile, the Ottoman Empire faced unexpected challenges. Without Constantinople, its dream of controlling the crossroads between Europe and Asia remained incomplete. Resources once devoted to expansion were redirected toward defending existing territories. Regional governors demanded greater independence. Frontier conflicts multiplied. The empire remained powerful, but it was no longer unstoppable. Neither side sought total war. Both understood that another massive conflict could destroy decades of prosperity. Instead, competition took a different form. Who could build better ports? Who could educate more engineers? Who could attract more merchants? Who could produce better cannons? Progress replaced constant conquest. Across Europe, scholars began referring to Constantinople by a new name: the Second Alexandria. Its libraries rivaled those of the greatest universities. Its observatories attracted astronomers from Persia, Italy, and the Arab world. Its medical schools became famous for combining Greek, Arabic, and Byzantine knowledge. Young students dreamed not of studying in distant monasteries, but in Constantinople. The city's influence reached far beyond learning. Artists blended Byzantine mosaics with Italian perspective. Architects combined Roman engineering with Gothic innovation. Musicians introduced melodies carried across 3 continents. Cultures no longer collided. They merged. One Venetian merchant wrote that in Constantinople, East and West no longer meet. They become one. Far to the west, the kingdoms of Spain and Portugal still searched for new sea routes to Asia. But the urgency had changed. Trade through Constantinople remained open, profitable, and reliable. There was less pressure to risk unknown oceans. The age of exploration slowed. Not because Europeans lacked courage, but because they already possessed a thriving gateway to the east. History itself drifted onto a different course. Back inside the imperial palace, a group of young engineers presented an unusual invention to the emperor. It was a mechanical clock unlike any built before. Its gears measured time with astonishing precision. The emperor examined it carefully. One engineer smiled. Every great empire is built on knowing the right moment. The emperor nodded, and on never wasting it. Those words soon appeared engraved above the entrance to the Imperial Academy of Engineering. Innovation became a matter of national pride. Inventors received imperial grants. Shipbuilders experimented with new designs. Mathematicians improved navigation. Metalworkers developed stronger alloys. Constantinople transformed into one of the world's greatest centers of invention. As another sunset painted the Bosporus in gold, the city shimmered with life. Hundreds of ships filled the harbor. Church bells echoed across the skyline. Scholars hurried through marble courtyards, carrying books beneath their arms. Children laughed in streets that had once echoed with cannon fire. The empire had survived. Then it had rebuilt. Now, it had begun leading the world once again. And beyond the horizon, the future was arriving faster than anyone imagined. Its markets had always been full. Its walls had always seemed unbreakable. But beyond the city, the balance of power across Europe had quietly begun to change. The Byzantine Empire no longer stood alone. Trade agreements connected Constantinople with Venice, Genoa, Hungary, Poland, and kingdoms throughout the Mediterranean. The Bosporus became the busiest commercial gateway in the known world. Every ship sailing between Europe and Asia passed beneath the shadow of Byzantine towers. The empire grew wealthy once again, not through conquest, but through commerce. Every caravan that crossed Anatolia, every merchant ship entering the Black Sea, every spice, silk, manuscript, and precious metal added to the imperial treasury. For the first time in centuries, the Byzantine economy flourished. Emperor Constantine XI did not live to witness all of it. Years after saving his capital, he died peacefully inside the great palace, not on a battlefield, not defending broken walls, but watching the empire rise once again. The entire city mourned. Church bells rang for hours. Merchants closed their shops. Soldiers lowered their banners. Citizens lined the streets as the emperor's funeral procession passed beneath the great dome of Hagia Sophia. His successor inherited something few Byzantine rulers had possessed for generations: stability. The new emperor continued the reforms. Roads stretched deeper into the Balkans. Bridges linked isolated provinces. Imperial engineers improved harbors across the Aegean. Lighthouses guided merchant fleets through dangerous waters. Trade became faster, safer, and more profitable. Meanwhile, the Ottoman Empire faced unexpected challenges. Without Constantinople, its dream of controlling the crossroads between Europe and Asia remained incomplete. Resources once devoted to expansion were redirected toward defending existing territories. Regional governors demanded greater independence. Frontier conflicts multiplied. The empire remained powerful, but it was no longer unstoppable. Neither side sought total war. Both understood that another massive conflict could destroy decades of prosperity. Instead, competition took a different form. Who could build better ports? Who could educate more engineers? Who could attract more merchants? Who could produce better cannons? Progress replaced constant conquest. Across Europe, scholars began referring to Constantinople by a new name, the Second Alexandria. Its libraries rivaled those of the greatest universities. Its observatories attracted astronomers from Persia, Italy, and the Arab world. Its medical schools became famous for combining Greek, Arabic, and Byzantine knowledge. Young students dreamed not of studying in distant monasteries, but in Constantinople. The city's influence reached far beyond learning. Artists blended Byzantine mosaics with Italian perspective. Architects combined Roman engineering with Gothic innovation. Musicians introduced melodies carried across 3 continents. Cultures no longer collided. They merged. One Venetian merchant wrote that in Constantinople, East and West no longer meet. They become one. Far to the west, the kingdoms of Spain and Portugal still searched for new sea routes to Asia. But the urgency had changed. Trade through Constantinople remained open, profitable, and reliable. There was less pressure to risk unknown oceans. The age of exploration slowed. Not because Europeans lacked courage, but because they already possessed a thriving gateway to the east. History itself drifted onto a different course. Back inside the imperial palace, a group of young engineers presented an unusual invention to the emperor. It was a mechanical clock, unlike any built before. Its gears measured time with astonishing precision. The emperor examined it carefully. One engineer smiled and said, "Every great empire is built on knowing the right moment." The emperor nodded and replied, "And on never wasting it." Those words soon appeared engraved above the entrance to the Imperial Academy of Engineering Innovation. It became a matter of national pride. Inventors received imperial grants. Shipbuilders experimented with new designs. Mathematicians improved navigation. Metalworkers developed stronger alloys. Constantinople transformed into one of the world's greatest centers of invention. As another sunset painted the Bosporus in gold, the city shimmered with life. Hundreds of ships filled the harbor. Church bells echoed across the skyline. Scholars hurried through marble courtyards, carrying books beneath their arms. Children laughed in streets that had once echoed with cannon fire. The empire had survived. Then, it had rebuilt. Now, it had begun leading the world once again. And beyond the horizon, the future was arriving faster than anyone imagined. Constantinople never fell. In our history books, the 16th century was the moment Europe took over. Power shifted west. Oceanic empires grew. Ancient capitals died. But in this timeline, the heart of the world stayed right on the Bosporus. Constantinople was not just a capital anymore. It was the crossroads of the entire planet. Every single morning, ships from 3 continents docked at the harbor. Venetian merchants brought fine glass. Egyptian traders unloaded tons of grain. Persian caravans carried silk and gold. Scholars from Italy sat in cafes debating philosophy with mathematicians from Damascus. Armenian engineers argued over building techniques with master builders from the Balkans. The city became humanity's greatest marketplace, not just for spices, but for ideas. Inside the Imperial Academy, students gathered from every corner of Europe. Greek was spoken in the halls. Latin remained the language of science. Arabic texts were translated right alongside old Roman manuscripts. Knowledge did not belong to one empire anymore. It belonged to anyone who could read. The emperor set up the House of Translators. He paid scholars to work side by side. Their only job was to preserve and compare compare the greatest works of the ancient world. Books that were lost in our timeline were copied, printed, and sent across Europe. Printing presses ran 24 hours a day. For the first time in history, a student in Paris was reading the exact same scientific breakthrough as a scholar in Constantinople. Ideas were moving faster than armies. This massive flow of information changed technology overnight. Byzantine engineers upgraded water-powered machinery. Italian inventors built better mechanical clocks. Arab astronomers drew highly accurate star charts. Together, they built navigation tools that made old maps look like children's drawings. Sailing became safer. The oceans stopped being barriers. They became highways. When exploration finally started, it was not a bloody race between rival kingdoms. The Byzantine Empire funded joint expeditions. Think about this crew: a Greek captain, a Venetian navigator, an Arab astronomer, and Portuguese shipbuilders. They all sailed under one flag of discovery. They were not looking for land to conquer. They were looking for things to learn. They mapped new coastlines. They documented unknown islands. Trade routes expanded without a single shot being fired. Sure, competition still existed, but people realized cooperation paid better. Even the Ottoman Empire changed. Without the conquest of Constantinople, decades of expensive wars did not pay off. Trade was simply more profitable than siege warfare. Diplomats replaced generals. Commercial treaties replaced bloody battles. The Eastern Mediterranean became the most stable place on earth. Historians called it the Pax Byzantina, a long era where peace was kept by shared bank accounts, not armies. Ordinary people actually felt the difference. Markets were packed with cheap goods. Farmers got stronger iron tools. Doctors shared medical discoveries across borders. Universities welcomed foreign students without regard to nationality. The exchange of ideas became the empire's greatest strength. One evening, inside the Great Hall of the Imperial Academy, an elderly professor addressed a room filled with young scholars. He held up two objects: a sword and a shield and a book. He asked, "Which one builds an empire?" The students argued among themselves. Some chose the sword, others chose the book. The professor smiled. "You are all wrong." He placed the sword beside the book. An empire survives when it knows when to use the first and when to protect the second. The room fell silent. Those words would later be carved above the academy's entrance. Generations of students passed beneath them. Beyond the walls of Constantinople, Europe changed. Asia changed. The Mediterranean changed. Civilizations no longer feared one another as they once had. They competed. They negotiated. They learned. As the 17th century approached, the Byzantine Empire stood stronger than at any moment since the reign of Justinian. Its wealth filled the treasury. Its libraries held the wisdom of civilizations. Its harbors welcomed the world. Yet the greatest transformation was still to come, because the next revolution would not begin with armies or kings. It would begin with machines, and that revolution would change humanity forever. Constantinople never fell. Think about that. In our world, the Ottoman Turks broke the ancient walls in 1453. But in this timeline, the city survived. The Byzantine Empire did not die. It evolved. It is now the year 2026. This is not the world you know. But it is a world that could have been. If you look down from space, the planet looks exactly the same. The same blue oceans, the same green continents. But once you drop below the clouds, history takes a completely different turn. At the meeting point of Europe and Asia sits the biggest city on Earth, Constantinople. It is home to nearly 30 million people. The ancient stone walls still stand. They still surround the historic center. The massive dome of the Hagia Sophia still dominates the skyline. But right next to these ancient landmarks, giant towers of glass and green terraces rise into the sky. The old and the new do not fight. They live side by side. Nothing was destroyed. Everything was built on top of what came before. The Bosporus is still the busiest waterway on the planet. Thousands of ships pass under massive suspension bridges every single week. Cargo ships, research vessels, and electric passenger ferries share the water with autonomous freight convoys. The city still connects the world, just like it did 1,500 years ago. The Byzantine Empire is not a brutal empire anymore. It changed. Today, it is the Byzantine Commonwealth. It is a massive federation of self-governing regions across Europe and the Mediterranean. Every province elects its own leaders. Every region keeps its own local traditions. But they all share one legal system built on ancient Roman law. The Imperial Senate still meets daily. They do not sit in a cold marble palace. They debate inside a giant circular glass chamber overlooking the Golden Horn. Their arguments are broadcast live to millions of screens worldwide. There is still an emperor, but the role is ceremonial. The emperor is a living bridge between the ancient past and the modern world. Education here starts with one major focus: history. Every single child learns about survival. They study the siege of 1453 as the exact moment that saved their world. The very first lesson they learn is simple. A city survives when its people refuse to give up on their future. The universities here are legendary. The Imperial Academy is now a massive network of global research labs. Scientists from every continent work together on artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and clean energy. They believe knowledge belongs to everyone. Healthcare is just as advanced. Hospitals mix cutting-edge tech with centuries of medical texts. The average person here lives past 100 years. Preventive medicine receives as much attention as treatment. The lessons learned from generations of scholarship have shaped a healthier society. The Mediterranean has become one of the most prosperous regions on Earth. High-speed electric trains connect Athens, Constantinople, Sofia, Belgrade, and Alexandria. Ancient trade routes have become advanced transportation corridors. Commerce moves continuously between Europe, Asia, and Africa. The Bosporus remains the world's crossroads. Culture flourishes everywhere. Byzantine mosaics decorate modern public buildings. Classical music blends with Middle Eastern rhythms. Ancient festivals continue beneath drones carrying lights instead of torches. History is celebrated, not preserved behind glass. It lives in everyday life. On the outskirts of the city, visitors arrive at one of the most respected museums in the world. The Museum of the Great Siege. Its central exhibit contains only a few simple objects: a broken stone from the Theodosian walls, a Venetian crossbow, a Byzantine sword, and the weathered battle standard carried by Emperor Constantine XI during the final assault. School children stand quietly before the display. One young girl asks her teacher, "Did one battle really change the world?" The teacher smiles. It wasn't the battle. It was what people chose to build after surviving it. Outside, the evening sun reflects across the Bosporus. Thousands of lights begin to illuminate the city. Ships glide silently beneath the bridges. Students leave universities. Scientists continue their research. Families gather in cafes overlooking monuments older than most nations. Few stop to think about how fragile their history truly was. Only historians remember that everything around them, every library, empires are remembered for the wars they fought, the lands they conquered, the massive stone monuments they left behind. But sometimes, the greatest legacy of an empire is simpler than that. It is just surviving long enough to change the world. Tonight, we opened a different chapter of history. We looked at a world where Constantinople never fell in 1453. A world where one city's survival reshaped entire continents. Could this really have happened? Perhaps. History has never been set in stone. The fate of civilizations has often depended on moments so fragile that they passed unnoticed by the people living through them. A gate left unlocked, a fleet delayed by a sudden storm, a commander arriving just 5 minutes late. One decision, one sunrise, one day that changed everything. In our real history, the Byzantine Empire ended on May 29, 1453. Its capital became the center of the Ottoman Empire. The world adapted. Trade routes shifted. Politics changed. Civilization kept moving forward. But inside this timeline, the story unfolded differently. The walls did not crumble. The city endured. Instead of becoming a memory, Constantinople became the bridge between ancient wisdom and the modern world. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson here. Civilizations do not survive because they are the strongest. They survive because they learn. They adapt. They preserve knowledge when everyone else is letting it burn. Throughout this journey, one idea returned again and again. It was not conquest. It was not revenge. It was not raw power. It was renewal. Every generation inherited a damaged empire. Every single generation chose to repair it rather than abandon it to the dust. Stone by stone, book by book, bridge by bridge, century after century, that choice transformed an empire into a living civilization. Inside the Museum of the Great Siege, the last visitors quietly leave. The lights begin to dim. A young curator walks slowly through the empty galleries. He pauses before the battle standard of Emperor Constantine XI. For a moment, he says nothing. Then he carefully closes the protective glass, not to hide history, but to preserve it for the next person. Outside, the streets of Constantinople remain alive. The call of ferries echoes across the Bosporus. Church bells ring in the distance. Markets prepare for another morning. Students leave libraries carrying books beneath their arms. Engineers finish designing tomorrow's bridges. Doctors complete another long night shift. Life continues because centuries earlier, others refused to surrender. The camera rises above the city. The Bosporus shines beneath the moonlight. The lights of Europe and Asia stretch toward the horizon. Two continents, one city, one decision that changed them both. Higher still, the earth turns silently beneath the stars. Borders disappear. Only the blue planet remains. Beautiful, fragile, shared by everyone. Ancient parchment begins turning in the darkness. One page, then another. the final page comes to rest. A bronze seal is pressed into warm red wax. The symbol of the hidden archives appears. The archive is complete. Tonight we imagined a world where Constantinople survived. Tomorrow, another forgotten possibility waits beyond history's pages. Because the past is not only the story of what actually happened, it is also the story of every future that almost existed. Until next time, keep asking questions. Keep challenging certainty. Keep searching beyond the pages of history, and never stop wondering what if. Thank you for opening another hidden archive. Until our next journey, good night.